As COVID cases surge in Taiwan, I speak with NTU Public Health Professor Chang-chuan about how Taiwan can live with COVID.
I take you on a trip to Guanziling, famous for its muddy hot springs.
And in Hashtag Taiwan, Leslie tells us about the change in the US State Department's policy towards Taiwan. This is Taiwan Insider. Welcome to the show. Taiwan is learning how to live with COVID. Now, how concerned should we be about the recent upsurge in domestic cases? Well, I spoke with National Taiwan University Public Health Professor Chang-chuan. He tells us what to expect in the next couple of months and also why he thinks that Taiwan's quarantine policies should be loosened.
Taiwan now has an infection rate comparable to Singapore's and higher than the majority of neighboring countries. Our infection rate also are higher than US and comparable to Europe. All these countries, as to some extent, has already opened up. The ratios between domestic identified cases versus imported cases, the ratio is now over the 100 times. So the risk is inside, not outside.
So I did notice that Health Minister Staś Butler did mention that they're still keeping quarantine in place because of the concern for different variants. What do you think about that concern?
The theories of variants occurring is the more infection you have, the more risk of new variants coming out. So if in the future there will be some variant, I would say the risks coming from our domestic infections will be higher than, from outside.
With this surge of cases and the trend of it multiplying, where do you see Taiwan's death rate going at a time like this?
By judging the Omicron's pandemic in different countries, it takes about 1 month to reach daily cases around 100,000 or above. And it takes about 2 months for this wave of Omicrons to come down to certain levels.
At what point do you think that COVID is treated just like any other disease, like the flu, where we don't need to quarantine, we just rest at home?
COVID is not like flu yet because it's more transmissible and the severity is higher than flu. So we cannot treat it exactly like flu.
Are you optimistic about Taiwan's outlook in dealing with COVID now with the current situation?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. Our society as a whole are still in the mentality of zero COVID that we enjoyed in the last 2 years. It's hard, the society, to move to the phase of living with virus, which we cannot have zero risk. We can control some risk. If we can solve this social psychology as fast as possible, then probably we can move smoothly. Otherwise, I'm afraid the casualty and the cases will keep on rising, and that's what I don't want to see.
Oh, so you think there's too much anxiety about COVID? Is that what it is?
Definitely, it's too much anxiety because 2 years after this pandemic, we have learned more and more about this virus, and we have more tools. We have vaccines for people to be vaccinated. We have very useful antiviral medications that we can use to prevent people from infection to mild diseases. So it's totally different game now that we humankind has the tools to fight with this virus. So should not be as fear as we had 2 years ago. I hope our citizens, after learning the facts, can start to have this mentality of accepting a level of risk to live with this for the years to come. That's the post-normal society of this pandemic.
Now, COVID anxiety could lead to some people not getting the care that they need. Officials are telling people not to crowd emergency wards.
As COVID-19 cases continue to rise in Taiwan, emergency rooms throughout the country are receiving more and more patients looking to get tested. In response, the health ministry is working to divert people away from emergency rooms to different testing areas. Health Minister Chang-chuan says this is key to preserving healthcare resources. Hospitals have begun creating separate testing areas for children and adults. At Taipei Hospital in New Taipei, specialized pediatricians attend to children, while the adult testing area can test up to 2,500 people per day. Minister Chen says that if the 2,000 people who get tested at the center each day went to the emergency room, Taiwan would quickly face a crisis in emergency care. Taipei Hospital Director Zheng Shunping says that the emergency room at the hospital can see at most 700 patients per day, with priority given to the elderly and those with disabilities. Authorities are also working to ensure that there are enough hospital beds for those with severe COVID-19 symptoms. Minister Chen says that Taiwan could soon reach 200,000 daily cases, so it is important for the public to be prepared.
Now, Taiwan Insider has been living with COVID. Staś Butler got it 2 weeks ago, and Leslie has it now. Let's check in with Leslie to see how he's doing.
I'm quarantining myself in my room right now, and I gotta say I'm feeling pretty good. I'm exhibiting very few symptoms, if any at all. I would say my case is closer to the asymptomatic side, if not just very, very mild. I've had no cough, no fever. I've been measuring my temperature every day, and for the most, I haven't broken into a fever just yet. Never broke 37. And I think I got very lucky with contracting COVID-19. Now, that's not to say that I don't think COVID-19 is any less of a threat than it was before, because I know people who have also contracted COVID-19 and are exhibiting far worse symptoms than I am. They're having trouble breathing, they're coughing a lot, high fever. They exhibit anything from extreme tiredness to ravenous hunger. And that's why I've committed myself to isolating myself as much as possible and not coming into contact with as many people, because my experience and it can differ vastly from other people's experience. And even though I'm asymptomatic, that still makes me, I'm still very contagious, or contagious, I should say. I don't know whether or not it makes me any more contagious than other cases, but I'm doing good, and I hope you guys have a great show.
Next up, Emma tells us about her latest island adventure.
There are hot springs all over Taiwan, but there's only one place with mud springs, and that's Guanziling in southern Taiwan. I took a trip down to Guanziling to check out these famous springs and soak in all of their natural minerals. If you're looking for hot springs, it's time to take a trip up into the mountains of Guanziling, a town in Tainan County. Guanziling is especially famous for its hot springs, which come from a mineral-rich clay deposit and produce mud-like water. These minerals are supposed to be very good for the skin, acting like a natural cosmetic. Sicily and Japan are the only two other places in the world that have these kinds of springs. While Guanziling is most famous for its rare mud springs, the first pool we checked out was clear and full of fish. And not just any fish, these ones love to nibble your toes. It's a strange sensation, but removing excess dead skin makes your feet feel nice and smooth afterwards. Hot springs became especially popular in Taiwan under Japanese colonization in the first half of the 20th century. It's common practice to go back and forth between the hot and cold springs to improve blood circulation, and the pools here ranged from 17 to 43 degrees Celsius. If that temperature change wasn't shocking enough, there was a special pool that was sure to do the trick.
Alright, so we are in a type of hot spring that I've never been in before, which has these like electroshock sensors over here, and it's a very strange sensation. So where I'm sitting right here, I'm in between two sensors. Yeah, I just got shocked from both sides.
Some potential benefits of soaking in hot springs include improved blood circulation, reduced stress, better sleep, pain relief, and natural skin care. This hot spring resort also included some special equipment for stretching your body after your tense muscles finally relax in the pools. Here, my friend Brian tries hanging from these rings to properly align his back. After several hours of soaking in the springs, it was finally time to head home. The weather in Taiwan may be heating up, but a nice relaxing soak in the hot springs may be just what people need. Taiwanese weightlifter Chang-chuan made headlines last summer when she took home a gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. Now she's back in the spotlight, but this time for releasing her first book.
I not only lift weights, I also lift hope. That's the slogan that Taiwan's champion weightlifter Guanziling wrote in her new book. She has always exuded a positive attitude. The book is about her life and what drives her in sports and training. She said she promised herself to not just be a great athlete, but also to become an influential person. She said people have always said that she seems to lift weights with incredible ease. But she also says life and training haven't always been easy. Guo said it took changing the way she thinks to overcome those challenges. Guo's coach, Lin Jingnen, was at the book launch to congratulate her. He said he's proud that Guo was able to write a book in her capacity as a sports person. He's proud of how she always perseveres even in the little things, and that's what helped her achieve so much. Guo's relatives were there too, surprising her with flowers which moved her to tears. Even her idol, singer Tso, sent his congratulatory words through a video. The Olympic champion encourages young athletes to love reading and to begin by reading her new book.
Next up in Hashtag Taiwan, Leslie Liao tells us how the US State Department recently changed its wording on its policy towards Taiwan.
This week, something happened on the US State Department's website. Now, for those of you who don't know, the US Department of State is pretty much the United States' foreign ministry. It handles the United States' relationship with other countries. Now, the United States' relationship with Taiwan is often described using words like ambiguous, unofficial, and unclear. If you had to get an official stance, well, the United States broke diplomatic ties with the Taiwanese government in favor of the Chinese Communists back in 1979. Back then, both Taiwan and China claimed, hey man, we both represent China, and the United States ended up going with what we know as the Chinese government today. It's a long and elaborate history lesson, one that we've talked about in Hashtag Taiwan before. If you need a refresher, I'll leave a link to the relevant episode in the video description below. But now, back to the State Department. On its website, it claimed two things. One, the United States recognized the government of the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China, acknowledging the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China. And two, the United States does not support Taiwan independence. Now, notice that I use the word said as in past tense. And I said that because on May 5th, the US State Department updated its fact sheet about Taiwan. There's no more elaborate speak of legal governments, Chinese positions, and acknowledgements. That section has been summed up into the United States has a long-standing One China policy, which is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 US-China joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. That made something vague even vaguer. But do you know what's not as vague? The US State Department removed the sentence about not supporting Taiwanese independence. And as you might think, the Chinese government, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory, wasn't too happy about that business. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian described the move using words like petty. Now, in Taiwan, we're used to the United States' brand of strategic ambiguity. But as the ambiguity shifts in a way that makes things more unclear for the Chinese government, well, I think they could use the opportunity to understand how we in Taiwan have been feeling over the past 3-4 decades.
And now, have a look at some other stories that are on our radar.
Taiwan's special forces conducted paratrooper training in Pingdong earlier this week. They were assisted by the US Army's Operational Detachment Alpha. The US unit is based in Okinawa. US Armed Forces will help train Taiwanese military personnel once or twice each year. On Tuesday, Taiwanese human rights activist Li Mingze held a press conference to talk about his 5-year-long imprisonment in China. He disappeared in March 2017 after entering China from Macau. In September of that year, Li pleaded guilty to charges of subverting state power during a show trial in China. His wife and associates say the confession was forced. Li finished his prison term last month and returned to Taiwan the following day. Many people in Taiwan are struggling to buy COVID-19 rapid tests even with the recent government rationing system. That's because rapid test stock at pharmacies is limited, causing long lines. Convenience stores began selling them this week, and Taiwan is expecting over 100 million tests to come in from abroad by the end of the month. The recent surge in COVID infections has also caused shortages of other goods. The traditional Chinese herbal mixture NRICM101 is said to be effective at alleviating moderate symptoms of the disease. It is now in short supply across Taiwan. Some people are turning to unofficial channels to buy the mixture at inflated prices.
All right, well, it's time for the final question. Earlier today, I talked about Guanziling and the hot springs there and how they're great for relaxing. So I wanted to ask you, when you want to let go of some stress and just relax, where's somewhere you like to go in Taiwan?
Well, I love to go to the beach.
Ooh, nice.
So there's a video of a recent trip to the beach. I love to watch the boats too while they're sailing. It's very relaxing. I love the beach. How about you, Emma?
Yeah, no, mine definitely connects to that as well. Mine is a specific place called Dulan. Now, this place is in Taidong. It's a small town, and in my opinion, it has everything you need to relax. It has the mountains, it has beaches and the ocean, and there's also a really great music scene there. So I really love to just go there and just chill out. It's a great time.
Taidong is beautiful. So Taiwan has a lot of great scenery. Hope you're enjoying it. And thanks for tuning in to Taiwan Insider. I'm Natalie Tso.
And I'm Emma Banak.
And do join us on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Hope to see you on social media. See you next week.